let's have a lesson and discussion on this work. Follow the lesson for free and just pick up all the tips from the video for free. But if you're interested, I do have a sheet music edition of all 25 etudes in Carcassi's Op.60, and there's a link for that in the description. Etude number 9 offers a study opportunity for a high melody with arpeggio accompaniment. So lots of work on balance to do in this particular etude. And this work is quite romantic in nature. It's pretty stormy. It's a little bit Schubertian, quite romantic in its way. So lots of different things you can do with the piece, and there's lots of different interpretations you can take. But let's first just talk about the musical balance. So we have a very clear melody here, and your goal is to bring that melody out. It's that top voice. So you want to practice just that top voice on its own and make sure that you have it very clearly locked into your ear as the prominent musical line. Now, in terms of hierarchy, that melody's at the top. It should be the loudest, or at least the most prominent, the one that you're drawing out of the texture the most. And then you can have quite a bit of resonance from the bass because it only occurs on the first beat of each measure, and it gives you a nice cushion of sound to float on top of. So melody, bass, and then accompaniment. And that's really just these repeated notes. So with the I and M finger, which should be very soft. So you really want this balance of the melody. If we just practice the first two measures and work on musical balance. So you hear that I and M, it's just very soft. It's just a murmuring, right? So usually you can accomplish that by, softening everything up. But with the A finger, doing just a deeper follow through towards the hand. Usually that's enough to bring a note out of the texture just by doing a deeper follow through. You could, just for practice, you could practice it with a rest stroke. And if you practice it with a rest stroke, that you'll find when you switch back to free stroke that the A finger remembers some of that extra weight or that deeper stroke with that finger, and it brings out that melody naturally. So you might want to practice it in both ways, but certainly you'll be playing the piece in free stroke because you want all that accompaniment ringing out the whole time. You don't want to mute it with that finger by placing it on that string that should be ringing. So a deeper follow through with that finger, and then just super soft on these, and then a fair amount of resonance with the bass. So you don't have to be too careful with the bass. Outside of that, you still have some, phrasing to do. You want to ease into things. And at measure 7 there, when you're cadencing, relax a little bit. Still lots of dynamic phrasing in here as well. In terms of the left hand, you can practice a lot of this as just chords. If you take the whole quarter note beat and play all the notes as one, as a solid chord, that's really good practice for your left hand to just learn those shapes in a really solid way, but it's not that practical for actually playing the piece. When you're playing the piece, you really have to often get that first note of the next measure and then grab the accompaniment notes afterwards and hold it all down after the fact. If you try to move the whole block chord shape over, you're gonna get little hiccups between each measure. So you really do have to make sure that you get that first note. Here, for example, just get that third finger, and then 1 and 2 can go down after. Same thing here. You need to get that D sharp first, and then 1 and 3 can quickly get down. That split second is the difference between transitioning from one measure to the next smoothly or not. But nevertheless, practicing in solid shapes is really great for your left hand awareness of the shapes. So practicing in that way is a good, especially preliminary way of working on the piece to know the piece very well and to know those chord shapes. But when it really comes down to the legato transition from measure to measure, you just have to get one note at a time pretty much, or at least the first note of the measure and then the accompaniment notes after the fact. So yeah, just practice it in a variety of ways so that you're teaching your hand the different ways and the different musical results of the piece. Now, in terms of your conception of the piece, I think when I used to play this, I thought of it more as a classical era work with just and you can do that. At slower tempos, you can make it sound quite beautiful and very peaceful. At faster tempos, I feel it has a little bit more of a stormy, romantic nature to it. With lots of even in the accompaniment, you can shape that a little bit to make it quite moody, right? As opposed to maybe a much more peaceful interpretation. Which you could go through and just really emphasize a beautiful melody. I think the tempo marking of Allegro and just the nature of the melody and the accompaniment and the choice of key lends very well to that kind of stormy, moody character. But you can try it in many different ways and find a balance find a musicality or a character that you really prefer. Okay, I think we can just do a walkthrough of the piece that gives you some preliminary information to set you up, and just practice that, with the first couple measures quite a bit before you tackle the whole piece. And now let's just go through and we'll talk about a few things, although there's not too much to talk about. I think all the things I mentioned covers most of the piece. I do quite a bit of a writ there just to break it up, a little bit. Here, I used to finger this quite differently, but now I've gone with this fingering, which is a little bit less orthodox, but it works quite well. 4/3 on the F, which is a little bit unnatural, right? But allows you to keep your second finger on C that whole time, which is very stable, and then just move it up there. You have to be careful at the end there. The last few measures there require a little bit of special attention because it's not the same string grouping. It's 3rd and 4th string. So some special attention on that last arpeggio figure. So a great etude for melody and arpeggio accompaniment. Lots of things to work on in terms of balance, but also in musicality. There's lots of push and pull, and lots of, even in the accompaniment, there can be quite a bit of dynamic shaping. So and some chord shapes to deal with and shifts as well. So really great etude. I recommend just like taking it slow, getting the musicality all locked down, and then you can start pushing the tempo and experiment with more moody characters for the piece. But if you do that right away, you might not have the classical refinement as part of it. So you want to make sure that you work up to that speed slowly while keeping a control over that musicality.